Oh my goodness, guys, we had a new support worker. I advertised on a particular little area that I trust, and I got actually heaps of replies. And one of the things that I really like, so the ad I put up for Bo was that I was looking for a support worker, but they had to be very, very strong in physics. That he's got a super quirky sense of humor, really sort of not a mainstream sense of humor. Obviously, I said support worker for 17-year-old boy with autism, like, you know what I mean? That was the headline, but the subcontext was that I said, you know, must be super strong in physics, and because that's kind of like a language of its own. I've found that Bo has adopted technical language as opposed to layman's terms. So I got a bunch of people replying, third year engineers, people studying physics and engineering at school, at university. It was unbelievable. Some of them had completed completed an NDIS, whatever. Others were had experience doing whatever, but they were all majoritively, and a lot of parents actually, because what I advertised on wasn't like a I don't know what you call them, you know, those websites where all of the, like the Mabels or the Buttons or whatever it is that you call all the, you know, those websites where everybody's a support worker. It was more of a sort of community-based one. And I got heaps of mums that were like, oh my gosh, my son would be amazing for this. I had a woman who contacted us and said, you know, I am a girl, would he mind, you know, having a girl? And I was like, we just had Jess, that's all he knows, he's never had a boy before. So we had our first, it's the interview process, it's what I call the interview process. But I was explaining to Bo that, you know what, because of the way his brain works and because of what he wants to do in life, it may be a really good idea to get someone who is going in that direction, you know, that science maths direction, rather than sort of, we've got, you know, we've had people who, we've got Jenny, she's really absolutely lovely, warm. I mean, she's sciencey, don't get me wrong, she's psychology sciencey, and biology, but she's just, she's all, you know, sunshine and lollipops, and she's just so sweet, and they have such a great time. But I thought it would be a really good idea to get someone who was specifically, you know, if you're going to get a support worker and you want your kid to work in the workforce and be independent, maybe not getting a full-time support worker, but a support worker who's actually heading in that same direction would be really good modeling. So we had this guy over today. He was fantastic. And Bo, because I'd said to Bo that this guy's doing his third year physics at Monash or something, Bo really, really wanted to like sit down and talk about the work he's doing at school at the moment. It doesn't usually happen like that. Like, usually when we have like the interview process, someone comes over and we play a game with them, or we do something to bring out their nature, to bring out who they are, so we can see, you know, none of this sort of, so where have you worked before, and who have you worked with? We do none of that. We sit them right down and do like a massive icebreaker, like with Cards Against Humanity, something really un-PC, something, you know, to show that real nature of the person, whether they can have a laugh and get along with him on his level and that sort of stuff. But Bo wasn't having it this time. The door opened and Bo was like, I want to sit down and go through these things in my physics book. And I'm like, buddy, he's like, you know, don't you want to just get to know each other first a bit? And he's like, nah. And I was like, okay. I said to the guy, is that all right with you? And he's like, yep, sure, no worries. Whatever he wants to talk about is what he wants to talk about. Well, my God, 2 hours later, it was like listening to I mean, it didn't even sound like a language. It didn't sound like, you know, I wouldn't have put it in like one of the Romantic or one of the Germanic languages. It just wasn't. It was like with a couple of words of, oh, but what if, and oh, did you see how, and then gravity, and I heard, and momentum I heard, and not really sure what else I heard. It was all a little bit crazy, but again, something. So I was in the other room, because normally I'm in the room, you know, you want to make sure that the person who's coming and being interviewed is the right kind of person for, you know, for your kid as well. You are the adult in that situation, and normally I'm there during that process, but because they were speaking about, you know, they were sitting together, you know, just looking over things and talking and whatever, I was just in the other room. And then I heard the guy say, oh, no, don't worry about that, you know, that's just a red herring. And because they were quite in depth in something, some equation, some simultaneous equation of something, I didn't interrupt. But once I saw Bo sort of close his book and they were sitting, you know, having a chat about whatever they were talking about, I walked over and I said, hey, Bo. I said, you know, you guys done? And they were like, yeah. And I said, what's a red herring? And Bo was like, what? And I said, what's a red herring? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, it's really interesting. I said, because I heard him say, you know, oh, don't worry about that, that's a bit of a red herring. And he said, oh my goodness, yeah, I probably shouldn't have. And I said, no. I said, in my opinion, it's great. I love people, like, he's got a British background, his parents are British, he was born there and he came over when he was 8 or something, so he's got a lovely speaking voice, he's really easy to understand. Bo's physics teacher is Asian, and I find him difficult to understand, and if I'm finding him difficult and I know all the words, although that's just during parent-teacher, obviously he's not speaking physics to me, but if I know all the words and I find him difficult to understand, it must be quite difficult for Bo, who doesn't have a grasp on the English language like we do, with sayings and phrases and analogies. So you try to explain something with an analogy, and that analogy actually is more confusing and doesn't explain it because you use a term like red herring. So I explained to Bo what red herring was and what it meant, and how, you know, it was sort of in there to throw him off a bit. But then afterwards we sat down and we played a game and had a bit of fun, which was good. We got to see a little bit more personality out of both of them. I think it'll work really, really well. I think, you know, Bo's Beau's so focused at the moment on his schooling. There was, he got a low, what he considers a low mark in physics, and he was really upset about it. I actually got a phone call from his visiting teacher, because the words that came out were literally, I've gotten a 57 on my physics test, and now I'm worried about my future. I mean, Jesus, hun, you are like, and apparently the class average was 53. So he was, you know, he's above average anyway, but he doesn't care. Anything below 70 for him is not okay. And he still doesn't and refuses to understand. I mean, he doesn't refuse to understand. He still can't understand the concept of physics being known as being an extremely difficult subject. Therefore, no one gets high marks in physics. The class average was 53. So, you know, it would be odd for him to be getting 70s when the class average is 53. So I think at the moment it's the same way with his it's the same way he thinks with his support workers as he does about having friends or a girlfriend. When I said to him, you know, do you want to have a girlfriend? Are you interested in having a girlfriend? He's like, no, I'm doing school. Isn't that enough? You know, and I mean, technically, yeah, it is. School's really hard. He's doing year 11. He's doing year 12 next year. It's enough to concentrate on. The poor kid, you know, girls are like a whole other level, I suppose, when you think about it that way. So, yeah, very interesting way of thinking about things when I consider that situation. And I think he's thinking the same thing about his tutors. You know, anybody who isn't interested in the subjects that he's interested in at the moment or working on at the moment are a distraction in some ways. They're not, you know, he doesn't want a support worker who, you know, isn't sort of aligned with what he's concentrating and what he considers important in his world. So I think I've done really well to get these people. Got another person coming on Thursday to see how they go, and so we're going to try out a few people. And I think now that he's older, having more than one person, so not just having the Jess and that's it, but actually having a couple of different people and having him learn to change it up a bit with each person will actually be really beneficial for him. So that's where we're at. I'm on my way to pick up the crazy kids from their birthday party. So it's going to be a little nuts on the way back. But yeah, I just wanted to update you on the whole support worker. We've got 1 week left of school, and then there's 2 weeks of school holidays. So it will be really, really good to get this sorted before the school holidays start, and have someone who's, you know, heading in the same area as Beau, where he can discuss things. I think expecting him to have the same personality as a support worker or talk about the things as a support worker is quite unrealistic if I look at it. You know, people who are support workers are very specific types of people. They're very, you know, people again, they're not doing it for the money. You have to have a passion for people, a passion for connection, a passion for that kind of job. And Bo doesn't have a passion for people or a passion for connections. So this might actually be breaking the mold, but a really good way to do it. So I'll let you know how it goes, but things went so well today. I'm feeling really confident. The time flew past, and he was there from 1 o'clock until about 3:30, and I think only 40 odd minutes of that to an hour of that was, you know, hanging out and chatting and playing games. The rest of it was talking about what I guess Bo wanted to talk about, so that's really cool. There you go. All right, guys, have a good night. Hope your week is awesome. I hope my week is awesome too.